For many years I had never heard of the term Egregore or Tulpa, but I'd been speaking about them for many years. And some of you will be aware of a person called Rupert Sheldrake. He's still alive, and he's got a theory, hypothesis, and it's called morphic resonance. And this morphic resonance is a field of consciousness pertaining to certain creatures. Now, just got something in my shoe. He explains this morphic resonance in two ways, basically. He speaks about how dogs very often know when their owners are coming home. And they've done all sorts of tests with cameras, and they've discerned that, a minute or 30 seconds before the owner comes home, the dog or the cat is waiting at the window for the car to show up in the drive. Another instantiation of morphic resonance is certain scientists did a test. They gave potatoes to monkeys on an isolated island, and when the monkeys first got these potatoes, they would drop them in the sand, and they found them very unpalatable because all the grit was on them. So what they very quickly learned to do was wash the potatoes in water, ocean, or regular rainwater, and then, lo and behold, monkeys on adjacent islands which had never had potatoes before were given these potatoes, and instantly they went straight into the washing of the potato before eating. And so Sheldrake concludes from this that the monkeys must have been communicating with each other in a certain conscious field, only for monkeys, and probably only for monkeys in that region, because they didn't need to go through the trial and error. They didn't need to learn from eating the potatoes, which were covered in grit and sand, were unpalatable. Then they would wash them, and then they tasted much better. They didn't need to do that. They knew straight away. Now, when we look at animal behaviour, and we can see that, for instance, if you drop a horse in a lake or in the ocean, it's going to swim. A dog's going to do the same. A human being isn't going to do the same. And so we could say, well, these animals have learnt that, and they've passed the information on genetically. Yes, we could say that. Or we could just say that they are partaking in the same field, the same field of morphic resonance, where they are being communicated to, with and by. So, now I knew that because I've listened to a lot of Rupert Sheldrake stuff, but I've never heard him speak about what I'm speaking about now. And even before I knew the Sheldrake morphic resonance hypothesis, I was speaking about my hypothesis, which is about ant colonies, beehives, schools of fish, flocks of birds, governments, and groups of people en masse during certain times engaging in certain things like riots or peace marches, or anything similar, where a collection of human beings are thinking in the same way or very similar way that creates an energy form called egregore. And so I looked into egregores, and I see that an egregore is an energy form. Could be like a religion, could be like government, anything that pertains to having a power which is kind of like tangible. And I used to say to my friend, what is it that actually glues governments together? Because it doesn't matter, prime ministers and presidents and leaders, they'll come and go. Everybody, of course, enters into government or parliament and then leaves. But the energy pertaining to that always remains. And what I'm saying about this energy is that this energy is prolific throughout the whole of nature. And all governments are doing is entering into a variety of morphic resonance, just like what I'm going to be speaking about now, like particularly ant colonies. Because when we watch ant colonies, and you can watch videos on YouTube of a particular species of ant who have queens, who have tenders, serfs to care for the queen. Then there are soldiers which fight. Then there are like sentries which have genetically got huge pincers to kill and protect. Then you've got the diggers, then you've got the foragers. You've got lots of different regiments of these creatures which are born seemingly into that caste and know exactly what they're supposed to do. And like I say, some of them are born equipped in a certain way. Now you see, the ants that tend the queen never ever leave the underground, and so they're born blind. Whereas all the other ants, except the queen and her serfs, are born with vision, because they're going to need to see, because they're going to be outside in the outside world. And so what these particular style and breed of ant does, they go and invade other species of their same variety, and they know when this other colony is smaller than theirs, because they're not stupid enough to go and invade another colony being massively outnumbered. So there is an intelligence within that community of ants which somehow have assessed the size of the other colony in relation to their own, and then they would gauge whether they could take them, whether they could outnumber them. So of course what they do is they have to send their pincer guys to attack their pincer guys. And you know, there's no difference in the strength and prowess of these pincer guys, but the difference is these numbers. This colony has to ensure that they can keep sending them and sending them and sending them to kill off every last one of the other army. So how is it that they know that? It seems that one reason could be that there's an intelligence sector of the colony which goes out and stands on a high place and looks and, you know, calculates and gathers all this information like reconnaissance mission, or there is an intelligence within the morphic resonance which just tells them that the other clan is smaller than theirs. And so I think that's probably more likely, because if we consider that these ant colonies have got scouts and they send them out and they do their surveillance, then we have to also consider that there's somebody in charge which is gathering all these surveillance guys around and giving them a debrief and saying, look, so-and-so direction, there is another colony of X amount of ants, and we're going to invade them, we're going to do this, but we're not quite sure on the amount of centuries they've got, and so we've got to know this before we go and enter into a big problem. If we assume that, then we have to assume that ants, just like human beings, think in a very, very similar way about armies and kings and queens and serfs and workers and all these sort of things. Because if you look at the hierarchical system of an ant colony, then it's very similar to how human beings operate. But if you just consider that there's an intelligence which ants operate within, then it's vastly incomprehensible, how this is, but we can hypothesize about it. And I've been hypothesizing about this for a long, long time, because I've said to myself, how is it that these colonies know these things? And how is it that they even decide to go and attack another of their own colony? Because what they want to do is, when they attack the other colony, they're doing it for a reason, and the reason is protect themselves and the other colony. But what has to happen is they have to kill the protectors, which isn't that many. So if you say that like there's 500 protectors, then they'll be killed, they'll be sacrificed, and then let's say the colony consists of like 10,000 ants. So they kidnap the queen, and then they steal all the larvae, and they bring the queen and the larvae back to their own colony. And then when that happens, all of the workers follow the hormones or pheromones, or the energy field of that vanquishing colony. So when we look at this, we go, well, okay, that to me explains why when we get flocks of birds, they're all flying in a similar direction, they're communicating with each other as to where they're going. It looks like, you would think so, but it isn't in actual fact. And when you see the birds flying around the sky, you wonder to yourself, well, why don't they bump into each other? Why don't a fraction of them or half of them decide to go against the grain, and they're all bumping each other, and it gets a complete mess? Well, they all know, they're all flying in this morphic resonant vibration, and so they're just all going with the flow because they actually become one. They're no longer individuals anymore. And how is it that they know where they're going and how far they're going to fly for and all this sort of things? How do they know this? Again, it's much more easy to believe if you take the giant leap of incredulous faith to consider that there is actually a vibration of information which is an egregore, which has been around ever since ants have been created, and all the information that ants have about themselves, it goes into the ether, like into the akasha. The Hindus talk about the akasha being the realm in the ether which contains every single bit of information that's been known about the human being. And we can tap into that in certain states of vibrations, and within deep meditations and all this sort of thing. And then when we look at the geniuses of our epochs, then when we ask these people, now okay, I've got deja vu here again. Remember, some of you remember me speaking about a golf ball just lying on the green, and there's the fairway, and there's nobody coming down. It would be a miracle if somebody could hit a ball from over that ridge to land on the green, because one, they can't even gauge how far it is to actually hit the ball. And so there we have it. another ball just on the green. And what I surmise about this is that this was a ball that somebody found, because these balls can be found up and down this footpath, and when they come through here they think, well, they could throw the ball very obviously in one or two places, on the tee, which is just over there, or on this green, which is here, because I find it incredulous to think that anybody could have lost this ball. I mean, it's very obvious, isn't it? And there is no way that this ball could have been hit from anywhere else, because there's no tee. The tees are over there, and that's heading in that direction. There's a tee behind me which is heading in that direction, and so there we have that ball. And quite an anomaly, still there's nobody come over the brow of that hill behind me there, so there's nobody coming looking for that ball. And so my hypothesis is that someone has found that ball, and it may indeed even be the person that put the last one there, because people form patterns. Or it may be another person that, you know, has thought of the same thing. Maybe people are entering into this morphic resonance of what to do with golf balls when they find them randomly. Here's another one. Look. Now, how did that one get lost? Exceedingly obvious, as far as I can see. And so I think I'll actually even go back and I'll pick that ball up, that other one. So, are people entering into these morphic resonance spaces and acting in a very similar way? And so when we get ant colonies born and bred all over the place, well, every time that they make manifest, they actually enter into morphic resonance of that vibration. And then this morphic resonance is the driving force behind all of them creatures. When we know that butterflies fly 4,000 miles from North America down to Mexico, we could never envision each butterfly having the intellect to be able to do that. But we can well envision that they get caught up in a collective intelligence, which is the morphic resonance. And so, you know, many years ago I was thinking about this thing, and I never called it morphic resonance. I didn't know about egregores, but my rational, logical, spiritual mind was proposing certain explanations for why things were such. And so now I've entered into a realm whereby I'm starting to put even more pieces of this puzzle together. And what I say to you guys is, when I'm speaking about concentric circles of consciousness, we are in a particular circle of consciousness when we have a particular intelligence, experience and longevity. When we increase our experience and our knowledge and our longevity, then it's a natural progression to enter into a further extremity of awareness, consciousness. So we go out into another circle of consciousness, leaving the smaller ones behind. And when I speak with lots of you guys, and it never ends up well, really, generally, because you're speaking from a circle which is inside mine, and you are disputing my knowledge, my wisdom, my experience from the vantage point of being a younger, egotistical, unevolved person. I mean, that's not being derogatory, that is just natural. We've all been there, and goodness knows, you know, I've been where all you guys are, making assumptions and thinking that you actually know things. But what it takes is a little bit more knowledge to discover how little you really knew. And you know, people say like, oh, you'll look back on this time and you see how silly you were. Of course, we all do this. It's a natural thing, and it's the evolutionary thing. And if we do not do that, then of course we're never evolving. We've always got to do it to the day we die. And so, being 60 years old, you know, professing that I've put quite a few things together, and I've joined a few dots, I'm under no assumption that in 10 years' time, then there will be another half a dozen or dozen spanners in the works, which is going to force me into rethinking. Because this universe is a paradox, and it's so vastly incomprehensibly intelligent, we will never ever comprehend it. But as long as we think we do, or are doing, or we have the potential to, that's what stops us from being massively depressed. Because if we think that this is too overwhelmingly intelligent for us, we'll never understand it, then we'll give up trying, and we'll lose a lot of the joy and pleasure of pursuing the answers. And so whatever it is that drives us to pursue the answers is a very invigorating, beautiful thing, because it enables us to become more intellectually endowed, and you know, to put the pieces together and to gain knowledge and wisdom to a certain degree. But we can never ever get complacent enough to state that we know it, and this is why I've got no time for science. You know, science effectively is only a couple of hundred years old. You know, if we go back to pre-industrial revolution times, which was like about 1750, then what really did we know? Hardly anything. And so what I am saying is that we hardly know anything now, just because there's 150 measly years under our belts. So there's still lots of fungi around, and you know, I've come out today to do a little bit of fungi foraging, and to have some exercise, fresh air, clear my head, make a video, and you know, enjoy myself. And so looking at that one there, that's very dark on the cap. And so I couldn't say off the top of my head what this one is. And as I've got camera in one hand, this in the other, and a staff, then I'm not going to put it in my Tupperware box right this minute. So I'll continue to finish this video. Now, someone in the comments, is a new viewer, says that I speak very eloquently and, you know, seemingly from a place of intelligence, but he had a problem listening to me because of my unkempt hair or beard. Well, I mean, isn't that peculiar? I wonder if this person would have a similar objective or objection to listening to other people with long beards and hair, like any number of philosophers from the old days. I wonder if people adopted that policy, they would have never listened to Einstein, You know, Einstein's renowned for having the wacky Back to the Future type Doc hairstyle. But you know, when you have people with hairstyles like that, it's simply because they're well past the time when they give a fuck about what their hair looks like. There's far too many more important things to give their energy to, rather than looking at how people are going to be perceiving their hairstyle. And working on the premise that you can never satisfy everybody, then just give up from the get-go. That's my policy. And I have no interest what my hair and beard looks like. I've let it go feral because it just suits me at my moment in time. It's kind of like, why would I want to fashion it, style it, and all these sort of things? And you know, this hair, if I comb it, then it's just a bush, so I can't comb it. It's been suggested that I should trim it here and there. Why? For other people's pleasure? I don't have a problem with it. And eventually I'm going to put it in dreadlocks. And the same with my beard. I'll stick beads in and dreadlocks. And I'll start to look a little bit like Blackbeard, the notorious pirate of the Caribbean. And so I've always felt very much a kinship with pirates, and that's why my body's covered in pirate tattoos. So anyway, just curious how people are always thinking, and you know, everyone thinks different, and they've got objections, and you see, look, this is not only an objection to how unkempt my hair and beard was, but it really is potentially an issue for him. If he can't listen to me or take me serious, even though there's a part of him that's saying this guy speaks intelligently and eloquently, but I just can't listen because of his beard and his hair, then that's the ideal opportunity, if you're still watching, to look at why that is, because you've evidently got a deep-rooted issue with that. And I would think that it stems from your conditioning in that, you know, we're supposed to have trimmed beards and we're supposed to have you know, trimmed hair, and it's got to be very well kept, otherwise we're going to be upsetting people, and people are going to be thinking certain things about you. Well, if you watch any more of my videos, then you very quickly discern that I don't give a flying fuck about what anybody thinks about me. I'm enjoying my life and just being free and me. And so I would say, take a leaf out of my book and join me. Grow your hair, tune in and drop out. So these egregores and tulpas. A tulpa is an energy form which becomes like a real physical energy, and this is what I think you know, Jesus was. I think Jesus was a tulpa. You see, when we have a book which is so widely spread, and people thinking and contemplating and praying and sending all their energy to Jesus, 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 well, this dimension is given to creating things out of seemingly thin air. You see, we once we've got a great deal of knowledge how this thing works, then we don't have a problem with Jesus being a tulpa. Because Jesus is a fiction of billions of people's imaginations, and just like the whole world is, it's a fiction. It is like trees and all the rest of it, because we've been told that these are trees by so many people on the planet. Whoever coined the term, and whatever the term is in other languages, you know, we know these things to be trees, and you know, so whenever we see a certain shimmering or manifestation of something, if we can put a concept to it, then it becomes more and more real. Whereas if we can't put a concept to these things, then they become like apparitions to us, because we've got no concept for them. If we see something, then it's only faintly visible, like an apparition, like a spectre. And it doesn't manifest in this dimension without that level of human energy being put into it. And so, you know, Tulpas and Egregores and all these sorts of things. They're manifestations of consciousness, just like the cosmos is a manifestation of God's consciousness. And we are shards of God, and so we manifest other things in our own collective way. And so just finishing off then, just summarising on this morphic resonance thing. What is it? What's this energy which draws people like governments, hierarchical system? What is this manifestation of energy which always draws a hierarchical system into it? Whether it's a pride of lions or pack of wolves or human beings or school of fish or flock of birds, there is something which is resonant, vibratory in the ether, which draws these energy forms to them, which in actual fact are not energy forms, by the way. Quantum physics has been telling us that for over 100 years. It's just all illusory. And so it's very deep, it's very complex, but you know, when people have problems with things I say, just stop and consider that you're not in my concentric circle. The vast majority of you are at least 20 years younger. You've got 20 whole years of information to gather before you are gonna, you know, remotely enter into my state of consciousness. Now, within this past 20 years, I've been on this spiritual path for 14 years, and there's been an enormous amount of experience and information which I have absorbed and come to know and compile and all these sort of things. So, you know, I'll just leave you guys with this. If you don't ever think that anything is correct, ask yourselves, on what premise are you dismissing it? Just because you think you know something which seems contrary to it, or it seems so outlandish and stupid, and you know, the ego goes, that's stupid, that's claptrap, as one guy uses. Well, if it appears to you to be claptrap now, have a look again in 20 years' time. And by that time, if you're still on the path, I would think that it would have morphed into something being vastly more respected than claptrap. And so if anybody's looking at me and they're thinking that, you know, I'm picking all these things out of the air and I'm all in my, you know, illusory bubble and this, that and the other, well, I mean, first and foremost, read my book. So you know a little bit of the experience that I've had, a little bit. And then ask yourself if you've had any of those experiences, and if you've read anything like the amount of esoteric stuff that I have. And, you know, the reality will be that you haven't. Very few people have had the experiences that I've had. I've had a very, very full and rich life, traveling 45 countries around the world and, you know, reading thousands of books and investigating this stuff for a long, long time. And so my advice is just to chill. Take the chill pill and just keep learning, and don't get all uptight. Eventually pennies will start to drop and you'll make the realizations. But don't ever discount anything anybody says. Just archive it. Just take it with an open mind and archive it, and then call on it at a later date when you've got more information which fits with that. So that's what I've done. Archived a billion things, and then via my meditations, my unconscious, my intuition, my spirit, start sifting through all these. They're looking for similes, they're looking for patterns, and then they'll eventually pop them into my everyday consciousness, and then I'll draw conclusions from that. And so from this little brown mushroom and this beardy weirdy, I bid you a good day.